Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch. I'm your own personal sales maven, here to offer you tips and strategies and techniques to really master your sales conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about mindset. When asking for help in your business feels awkward, uncomfortable, or even a little wrong, this episode may be one of the biggest shifts in mindset you'll have around selling. Because what if the thing that makes you decide I am not salesy is actually the very thing that's keeping clients from saying yes to hiring you? There's a pattern that I often see with clients. And like most of my podcast episodes, either they come from an experience I've had or they come from, which is still an experience, but a client conversation or a client coaching session where I think, oh, more people need to know about this. So here I found myself yet again, so grateful that I get to work with the clients that I get to work with. I really do get to work with the best people. And I was working with a brand new client recently, a VIP client, and we were in the middle of her VIP day experience. And I was laying out a strategy with some scripts, technique, and kind of next steps for business development. And she had the response that, just to be honest, most of my clients have when I lay out this strategy. It's a very typical response and not in a bad way. Actually, it's in a reaffirming way that, again, I get to work with the best people. But as I'm laying out this strategy, I could tell there was like some hesitation. So I'm always going to check in about this. And I said, okay, how's this landing for you? How are we doing? And she was like, Nikki, I have to tell you, I'm really not comfortable with this strategy. Like it involves me having to ask people to do something for me. And that just doesn't feel right. And I was like, okay, I can always give alternatives. But in this particular case, because I do get this response often, I asked permission to dig in. I asked if I could ask some questions because I need to understand like what's getting in the way. And then that will help me figure out like where I'm going to bob and weave and give a different strategy and or help the client feel comfortable with the strategy and of where we're going. So this idea of not wanting to feel pushy, not wanting to feel like a burden, and this identity statement that some people are just like, I don't ever want to be identified as a taker, right? That is so common. So here's a question that I often ask. So I'm going to ask you. So you and I get to have this conversation today because you're here listening. Thank you. When someone offers to help you, do you immediately accept it or do you deflect it? Now, let me give you a more concrete example. When somebody offers you a compliment, do you take it? Do you deflect it? Do you minimize it? Or like what? What do you do when someone gives you a compliment? This is usually an indicator of how you kind of show up in the world, right? Someone gives you a compliment. Do you like graciously, oh, thank you so much? Or do you feel like, well, I need to tell you that, you're complimenting me about X, Y, and Z, and here's why, it's really not a big deal, right? Or, oh, yeah, that's not really a thing. You completely deflect that compliment. Um, and that's normal, right? Like there many of us were raised like be gracious, be a giver, like it makes you a good person, all of these things. So there's some identity wrapped up in like, not wanting to feel like, oh, she thinks she's a big deal or oh, she's too big for her britches or, all these kind of things that we have. You probably have better ones than the one I just threw out, but you get where I'm going around with this. Okay, so here's what I did with my client. So follow, like, if you're willing, follow along and, imagine you and I are having this conversation. So the first thing I asked her is, You know, there's often referred to as two type of people, right? There's the givers and then there's the takers. Which one do you identify with most? And she was like, oh, no doubt, giver. Now, this is not a judgment, by the way. I'm not making a judgment about being a giver or being a taker. Like there, I'm just asking questions. So for her, like giver feels right. And that's common, right? Like this idea of givers are generous. Givers are usually filled with joy. There's some fulfillment that we get as givers for giving, right? Like, think about it. When you've done something really fantastic for somebody or something that's helped them in some way, and especially when like there's no kickback to you for doing this thing for somebody. You're just doing it out of the kindness of your heart, or you're just doing it because it's the right thing to do, or you're doing it because you can and it feels good, right? Like that is a gift for us as the giver to have that result, right? Of like that good feeling. And I often ask givers when we're having these types of conversations, like how do you respond when somebody wants to, give to you? And they're like, oh, that gets awkward, that gets weird, that gets uncomfortable. I get it. But the thing that we often don't think about is those really great feelings that we're getting from being a giver. We're actually like putting up a roadblock and we're like blocking anybody else from having that experience by giving to us. And this was this big mind shift for my client. Like I wish I had had it on camera. Well, I did have it on camera, but I'm not going to show it, right? But like you could see everything shifted. Her body language, her facial expressions, even her voice changed a little bit as we started to get digging into this, because she's like, I never really thought about the fact that I don't allow other people to give. I never take. Like that's kind of my MO. And again, that's probably a learned behavior. And with anything, sometimes adding a new tool to your toolkit just makes you more prepared. It makes you more resilient. It makes you more confident. And if giving is the thing that comes really naturally to you, try taking, try receiving, and see what could change for you. Because you really don't want to let other people be robbed of that feeling of what it's like to give. And think about if you know someone in your life who is that, you know, always the giver, and you try to do something nice for them and they won't even let you. They just can't even accept anything. Do you start to feel a little bit like resentful to that person? Or have you ever felt a little bit like, what in the world? Like, why do they always have to make it about them being the giver? Like, why can't I do something nice for this person and just have it be that? Like, why can't they accept it? You don't want to be the person, I don't think. You don't want to be the person that other people are walking away going like, you can't even give her a compliment because she just like won't even take it in. It's like you've got this really hard outer shell and nobody gets to break through. And I get that it can be a protection thing and I get that it can be a vulnerability thing. Believe me, like I know I've worked on this for years for myself too. But it's these hidden costs of not allowing yourself to receive. It's missed introductions. It's missed opportunities. It's slower growth in your business. It's staying stuck in a cycle that is really not serving you. And just to give you an example of it, this is a concrete example. I also got onto a coaching call recently with a client we've coached together now for a few years. And she, has a strategy session with me when she needs them, when she's got something going on. So she scheduled a strategy session and she started off the session by wanting to share a win, which I love, right? And she said, Nikki, I wanted to let you know that I used the strategy that you laid out for me last time on our call, and it opened a door that then made a connection that then resulted in a few $100,000 in business This was only like a few months ago that we had this conversation. And for the result to be a few extra $100,000 into our business because she was willing to ask somebody, which was what I had laid out a strategy, was this how to ask for connection in a really, kind way that opened a door. Like, who wants to miss out on those opportunities? These are so huge, right? And she even wrote a testimonial about it because she's so delighted with the results. It was something that it was like a first project that now is like a national rollout, all because she was allowing herself to receive. Big, big shift, right? Now, again, that might feel like, okay, well, is that the wrong thing to do? Well, no, it isn't. And this is why. Because if for some reason you have this misconception that growing your business, being successful in life is a lone wolf kind of mentality, then I am so sorry, but that's misinformation. That could be somebody else's story that you borrowed that they like wanted to dump on you but it's just not true. You know, especially in the different types of sales that I have done in my career and over the years, it's like the things that open doors are relationships. And this is why I always talk about, relationship first, rapport always, and the importance of it. But, you hear about like, oh, these deals that are getting done on the golf course and these, it's like it's through connections that doors are opened. And I know in my business, I'm 12 years into Sales Maven now, and I can track back the biggest opportunities that led to the most revenue that came into my business came from somebody either offering me a connection, opening a door, making a suggestion, or even just offering support, right? Like, I wouldn't even have this business if I didn't have somebody who supported me and said, like, go do this. You can do this. And I believe in you enough that I'll make it possible for you to see if you can make this business go. Like, I had to be the taker in those moments. I had to receive. And gosh, I'm so glad that I did. And I hope that my clients are glad that I did too, because I wouldn't be here otherwise. And most of us wouldn't be where we are. Now, you still have to make the investment of the time and the energy and all that to build the relationships. And, for me, like one of the biggest opportunities that ever opened a door was somebody made an introduction for me that then led to an invitation to attend this person's conference. And then by attending this person's conference, I had to pay for that. Um, Opened a door for me to speak at their conference that then opened the door for hundreds of thousands of dollars in business. And, but that all came from track back a connection request, a connection that somebody made on my behalf. Like, how, I mean, let's not mince words here. I am so freaking grateful for those opportunities, for the doors that have been opened. So, this idea of like, you have to do it alone and you can't ask for help or you shouldn't ask for help. And somehow by asking for help, that means you're less than. It's just not true. And being somebody who is allowing for there to be some balance between giving and taking in relationships, it just makes the relationship so much more full. And like, there's just so much more possibility. So don't be afraid of allowing yourself to ask for help. Don't be afraid of allowing somebody to help you. And of course, do the right thing and give back. Do the right thing and be grateful and do the right thing and help somebody else. It's like, I think this was an eWomen network, Sandra Yancey. I was never in the eWomen network, but I spoke at a lot of their groups when I was early in my business. And I feel like she has this saying that's like, lift as you climb. Um, I want to give credit where credit is due. I believe it's her saying for eWomen Network, lift as you climb. And it's this idea of like reaching back and helping somebody up. Like the thing is, though, is for us to all climb is you need that person that's ahead of you that's willing to reach back and extend their arm. And you have to be willing to accept it. But if you're like, no, I'm going to climb this mountain all by myself, like it's going to take you a lot longer and you might risk falling off the mountain. So lift as you climb. Allow yourself to help, like lean back, reach back, help others, but also be willing to accept help. And the thing about being willing to accept help is it's also important to remember that it's not that people don't want to help you. Because if you're walking around or if you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, yeah, but Nikki, like nobody's lifting me up as I'm climbing, like nobody's reaching back, then it might be because you haven't asked. It could be because you have an error of somebody who won't accept help. And again, this is not a like, I'm not here bashing you. I'm really here, hopefully, in support and love and kindness and generosity to say to you, like, if you haven't asked anybody for help recently, it may be that you are inadvertently sending the like, don't try to help me kind of message, right? And so it might be time to shift that that attitude, that mindset, the way that you are showing up in the world. And this tiny little shift can happen just by you asking somebody, like, is it okay to ask you for some help? Like that's like the simplest thing just to get it started. So if this feels like a little bit outside your comfort zone, these things that we're talking about of allowing yourself to take, allowing yourself to receive, if this feels uncomfortable and you're willing to stretch yourself and see what's possible, what else is there, then you could start by just asking for help today, right? Just for anything. Is it okay if I ask you for some help? And just see what people say. Now, it doesn't have to be a big thing that you start with. It could be something as simple as, is it okay if I ask you for help? Would you mind sharing what time of day it is? Like it could be something so simple, but just allow the words to come out of your mouth and see what happens. Because chances are people are going to be like, oh, yeah, sure. Like it's not a big deal for them to tell you what time it is. It's probably easy, right? Like just try it and see. Now, if this is something that you're struggling with in your sales process and business development is important to you and you're not quite sure about how to go about this and what the strategy is, that is something that I work with clients. And if that's something that I could support you on, then you're invited to reach out to me. Here's me allowing somebody to help me. And somebody pointed this out to me recently. I'm so grateful that she did. Is that when I make these calls to action on the podcast, sometimes I forget to make it easy for you to take that action by telling you how to reach out to me. So the best way to reach me is via email. And it's Nikki, Nikki, at yoursalesmaven.com. But you can also reach out to me through social media if that feels easier to you. I tend to hang out on LinkedIn and Instagram. Like, yes, you could probably reach me other ways, but the easiest way to reach me is LinkedIn and or I am on Instagram as well. So if I can support you, if you're ready to like get some business development going and seeing what's possible for you in your business, and you need some help with some scripts and some strategy around who to reach out to, that is something that I would be just delighted to support you on. So thank you so much for listening. Now, as a listener for this particular episode, if you're also willing to share, what was your takeaway from today? And of course, you can reach me via email, Nikki at yoursalesmaven.com, and share what was your biggest takeaway. Was this a shift for you? Was there an aha? Did you go and ask anybody to help you as a result of listening to this episode? I'd be so delighted to hear from you. And if you want to share this episode, please do. It's always so flattering to know that somebody shared the podcast with somebody, and that's how I ended up getting connected to them. So thank you for that. Have a great rest of your day.